coming from Genesis 3 and 6. It's a very familiar scripture. If everyone, oh, Bree's in the house. Girl. Miss Bree, man. Get in the house today. Glad to see you there, Bree. And listen, Father, we pray, Lord Father, that we open the hearts of your people, God, to see, Lord Father. Because God wants to deliver some people today. Did you know that? God wants to set some people free today. And listen, I've been really seeking God for the, like I said in the last couple of weeks, for the keys for deliverance for a lot of people that's been going through a lot of things over and over. And listen, y'all get tired of battling the same enemy? I don't know about y'all, but I get tired of seeing the same enemy, and I want to know how to defeat them. It's a way. You know, if you lose a battle, that don't mean you lost a war. One thing I'm learning as a minister is that, hey, we can press pause on the battle right now and go get some revelation from God on how to do this. You hear me? And that's where we are today. All right? All right? Let's praise God for being in this house today. I really feel this. Listen, I really feel His presence in this place today. We're coming from Genesis 3 and 6. Let's get started. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, y'all listen, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. In the Garden of Eden, I want you guys to know that Eve was seduced. All right? So you'll get the name of the message. Eve was seduced in the Garden of Eden. So listen to this. I want you to picture this in your mind's eye. All right? Yes, she disobeyed God's word. Yes, the man, we all know the story, right? But I want to show you that Eve was given a fantasy. All right? I'm going to read it again. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. You guys can be seated. As we know that Adam soon followed, right? We know that we can blame the woman for our mistakes now. Yeah, somebody said amen. The man said amen at least. I get amen at least from the men. It was that woman you gave me, God. But I'm so excited about this message because, listen, it's a right now message. And I've never seen anybody preach on it. It really is something that God gave me. Revelation on what's going on in our lives spiritually and things like that. And so I introduce you today's title. It's Fantasy versus Reality. Fantasy versus reality. Over the last several weeks, I've been really, I would say, spiritually introduced through some few members that's in here that God has begun to have me prophesy to people and have me tell people certain things about their fantasy life. And I want you guys to hear me. Fantasy doesn't always mean a sexual desire, okay? So let's get that out of mind. We don't want to go X-ray. But some of y'all, listen, there's 10 X's behind y'all fantasies. We're gonna bust you out today. It ain't just triple X, there's 10 X's behind that joke. I'm talking about, but I want you to see that Eve and Adam ate the forbidden fruit, right? And this is what many of us do in our fantasies. We eat the forbidden fruit, all right? And so we're gonna get started. Adam soon followed, right? And we're gonna address the spirit of fantasy. It's actually a spirit called fantasy. Anybody heard of the word escapism? Yeah. Escapism. Well, the world would say it's a healthy thing for people to do. You're going through your work day, right? We're going through our week. We're going through a bad week. It's good to escape from your problems, right? Now, I want to clarify some things because I don't want you guys to get confused of what escapism versus fantasy and all that stuff. But fantasy is the main spirit behind the spirit of fantasy is the main spirit that we're going to address today. Escapism works underneath that. So you can say it's one and the same. They operate the same, all right? Looks like I got everybody's attention today. Y'all look like y'all interested in this message today. It's going to be pretty good. All right. This is really... Listen, let me show y'all what a fantasy is. All right? The men, okay, and my nephew Marcus thought they could beat me in basketball. That was a fantasy. I quickly brought them to reality. And me and J-Twan, he was on my team too, so. We quickly brought them to reality with 3-0 that they could not beat us in basketball. Are you hearing me? And so, that was a fantasy of theirs, you hear me? But reality always wins over fantasy, so I'm just gonna give y'all that. I don't know where that came from. That was in the house. I don't know where that came from. I'm in the vein. All right. So, to let you guys know, your apostle still had some legs underneath him. After the third game, we was all holding our hips, and McKay was running as slow as I was. He couldn't even run past me. He's a track star, y'all, so we was all bent over. Woo! But we had a blast, though. But you know what? This spirit is so powerful in the church. I'm amazed at how far the spirit of fantasy have affected people. And as God began to start showing me this, it's not that they rebelled against God's word. Look what Satan brought Eve. He brought her a fantasy. He brought her, to make her think, So as you can imagine, when he's talking to her about this fruit, does God say, don't eat this fruit? Yeah, he knows that when you do, you're going to be just like him. Can you imagine her just fantasizing? That's why God don't want me to. I imagine she begins to fantasize about how powerful she was going to be, right? Can y'all picture that in your mind's eye? Okay, so let's get started. Anybody ever heard of a perception is reality? Anybody heard of that? It's so true in a sense, because the enemy uses that your perception is your reality. So if you perceive that somebody is rejecting you, you're gonna always that's what you're gonna look for in life. Are you hearing me? If you perceive that this world is evil, and that's one thing I know the enemy has placed on even me. I saw everything as the cup half empty. Oh my God, it's almost gone, right? Just everything was negative. I didn't notice the sun that was out. I didn't notice none of the beautiful things God had did. It was always just worst case scenario. Are you hear me? And so that shows you how your perception can become your reality, but into God's reality comes your reality. Then it blows it all up, all right? But we can take on some things, our perception, anybody can realize, so if our perception, anybody agree with that statement, perception can be your reality? So if our perception was given wrong by the enemy, we know that our reality can be what? False then, right? Right? Can we turn the arrows a little bit warm up here? Is it me? It might be the lights, the extra lights that's on me right now. Y'all know I sweat easily. But, okay, so I just wanted to break that down because many people today, I want you to know the reason why God disagrees with this. And I want you to realize, because fantasies, when you fantasize, you trade your now for a possible later. Are you hear me? But the possible never comes. Are you hear me? So you trade the real in for something that's what? Fake. That's what a fantasy does. Even though it may feel real, even though it may feel like, yeah. And so I was telling a testimony that over this last couple of weeks, I've been dealing with the spirit of fantasy with just different people. And I'm not going to name no names and nothing like that. And so y'all, whoever I'm talking to, don't make your eyes big so they know it's you I'm talking to. But it was both men and women. It's not just women. And we know women's mind can go pretty dark places. We know that. Y'all can carry on some stories in your mind. But not just men, not just women, men as well. I had to tell them, God says the enemy has placed this upon you where you just fantasize, you just date. And you know what most people don't realize? If they're not aware of it, they really don't realize they even do it. It's so natural to them. You ever see anybody just space out? You even talking to them, they can just go into a whole nother. I think me and Prophet was once prophesying to one young lady, and God, I think through the Prophet, began to start showing. And God says, you don't even have to watch TV. You actually just look at a wall, and you're able to form your own show. Wow. You hear me? Some of y'all in here know that. Hey, I just did that last night. Literally don't even have to watch TV, form their own show out of their fantasies. Are you hearing me? And so, one thing I want to get to the root of is kind of how the world has, let me put it through, trying to put it the right way. Listen, we live in a fantasy world. I'll put it that way. Listen. We from a child, they give us fantasies and fantasizing goals to live towards, right? They tell you that the earth, that the world is in debt. All right, how many trillions of dollars are we in debt, y'all? Well, we're not in debt. I'm just gonna tell y'all that. So y'all, if y'all want to believe that story, y'all can keep on believing it. All right. I'm gonna say it again. When you don't have no money, you can't spend it, right? Right. So, who's looking in the government's account and saying, "Hey, this check bounced. This check ain't gonna go through." It's a numbers game. Yeah. And so, from a child, they teach us that we're in debt. Why? So you can be okay with being in debt, right? It's a fantasy. We live in a world of fantasy football, fantasy. All these little fantasy things. We don't really pay attention to it. So, I was kind of very interesting as I started studying these things. There wasn't much information on it. Really, a lot of people, you know, some things were written about it, but wasn't very heavily studied. But it filters and it penetrates the church. I'm talking about it's real bad. It is real bad. And so again, I want to say that fantasies. I'll put it this way. You guys write this down. Fantasies are rooted in our desires. They're rooted in our desires as a human being. And I'll give you some examples. Acceptance, love, success. Anybody, any women ever dreamed that they was or fantasized about being with a famous rapper star or famous? See, women, they so listen, Sade is a professional, y'all. Y'all need some information. She's a professional fantasizer. Used to be. But these desires long to be satisfied within us, right? So we have sexual fantasies, successful fantasies. We have fantasies of wealth. Anybody just dream what it would be like if you won a lotto? Anybody? Well, I done had several of those dreams. Just laying in the bed. I'm in a whole nother place, outside of my broke life. Bet you I have a lot of women too. I can have anybody I want, then. Anybody? Yeah. All right. So I'm not talking. At least y'all being honest up here. At least y'all being honest up here. But I'm gonna move pretty swift here because it's a lot of information. So if you guys, if I miss something, y'all just say, hey, say that again, okay? And I'm gonna start off with the word fantasy, the definition. And this is the main spirit behind it. The faculty or activity of imagining things, especially things that aren't impossible or improbable. One more time. The faculties or activity of imagining things, especially things that are impossible or improbable. The power, this continues on, the power or process of creating especially unrealistic or improbable mental images in response to a physical or psychological need. You get that? The power or process of creating especially unrealistic or improbable mental images in response to a physical or psychological need. Here's another one. A mental image or series of mental images. This is with the women. Series. I'm gonna leave y'all alone today. Series of images such as daydreaming. Anybody daydream? Yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy. Daydreaming about another life. Did y'all know? Listen, God spoke this to me so clear. Listen, listen. Fantasy has to do with black magic. Wow. It's actually black magic. Fantasy. That's how the enemy is able to. That's why it feels so real. Right? I've actually talked to people that actually fantasize and literally when they have a fantasy, a sexual fantasy, they can literally feel it in their body. Anybody? They can feel it like they was with a real person. Are you hearing me? Yeah, that's how. And so you can see how easy it is to confuse fantasy with reality, right? Yeah. Right? You can see how easy it is to isolate yourself and say, I don't need nobody because I got a whole nother world that I just created over here that I'm accepted in, right? Especially people that deal with rejection. If you ever been rejected, or you feel like your voice has never been heard, especially by a parent or something like that. Like every time, you know, we grew up in a household that children didn't have no voice. Mama said, "Shut up, boy. You ain't got no voice in my house," right? And so, as children, if you ever been raped before, if you ever been molested before, you ever been felt like your voice wasn't there, you had the tendency to go into another realm to find somebody to accept you, right? And so you guys know, y'all been at Church of Chain long enough. Listen, we've cast Pokemon spirits out of people. Pokemon demon. Listen, Pkwy came out. You know? Listen, I'm dead serious, love y'all. Listen, we can write. We can probably have some shows up in here compared to with some demons that we didn't cast out. We gotta do. I told Sade and probably we need to do a demon hit list too, but with our own right. We didn't discover some demons. Listen, we didn't discover demons that's not in these books, y'all. I mean, and you know what God spoke to me about it? He says demons become anything that's a sin. They don't have any personality, so they try to become a personality, right? And so, I've cast out demons of, you guys have heard demons come out. No, she hurt me. That's a no, she hurt me demon. It was a demon of hurt. And that demon comes out in the form of whatever pain that person's in, right? Yeah. And so, it's that the person would hear that voice all the time. She hurt me, she hurt me, she hurt me, she hurt me. And they would repeat it back to themselves. And so, let's look at that. Now we're going to go to the definition of escapism. What is escapism, right? Now, pay attention to this. Escapism is the attempt. This is very important because this is the main demon underneath the fantasy demon. Escapism is the attempt to ignore negative thoughts or unpleasant realities by distracting oneself from them. Distractions can come in many forms. One largely being the first is fantasizing. Oftentimes, escapism manifests through indulgence in material things such as food. You see that? Sports. Man. Drugs, sex, and men, I'm sorry, but video games. If you find yourself playing hours on the game, listen, let me tell y'all something, because there's nothing wrong with a video game. But if you replace your reality with a video game, do you know people who play a lot of fighting games that think they can fight? They're the ones that you see get knocked out in the YouTube. Because they're trying to do a Tekken move. And their fantasy just got proved as a reality that you can't fight. I'm dead serious, listen, but men that spend a lot of games on, that's a form, it's just like drugs. It's a form of fantasy. Because I can conquer these levels. I can conquer. It's really saying I'm a failure here on earth, but I can conquer these boards. I can. You see how the feeling that comes over you when you finally beat Mike Tyson? That was my game, boy. When I finally got them cheat codes and I knew left, right, left. I had it down pat. He's finna hit. I knew he's finna throw a haymaker, everything. Finally, when I beat Mike Tyson, I got up like I did it for real. Told you, punk. Like I can really beat Mike Tyson. Do you see how your fantasy become a reality real fast? In your mind, but listen. And so I'm really addressing, especially people who deal with rejection. Let me not get ahead of myself. Is this making sense to anybody? Yes. Listen, anybody watched the movie Frozen before? Yeah. Y'all like that movie? Anybody? Yeah, anybody like that movie? Yeah, anybody? Listen, y'all trying to hesitate now. Tell the truth, y'all. Did y'all like the movie or not? Yeah. Everybody trying to see what I'm gonna say first. Listen, I like the movie too. It's very catchy, the song. But did y'all listen to this? You see us singing the song right there? This is what I'm talking about right here.
Right into it.
Jump right into it. But do you see how catchy those songs are? Listen, it's children that saw that Frozen one time theater that came home singing songs. Did y'all know that?
So true.
I mean, down packed. And see, y'all got to see the trick of the enemy. See, y'all got. Listen, y'all know the show Let It Go, right? I mean, the song Let It Go, right? Let It Go. Did you really listen to the words to Let It Go?
Yep.
Did you really listen to the words? Okay, I'm gonna read it for y'all. So y'all looking at me like I'm. Can I have my lovely queen read this for me?
Of course.
Start that way and then just go scroll over. Oops. Start here. All right, let's keep it clean, y'all. Let's go.
All right. Let it go. Let it go. Can't hold it back anymore.
Listen to the words.
Let it go. Let it go. Turn away and slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway. Let it go, can't hold it back anymore. Let it go. Turn away and slam the door. It's funny how some distance makes everything seem small, and the fears that once controlled me can't get me at all. It's time to see what I can do, to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me.
Stay right there. See that? No rights, no wrongs, no rules for me. Go ahead.
I'm free.
I'm free. Go ahead.
Let it go, let it go. I am one with the wind and sky. Let it go, let it go.
Demon of there. That's it.
You'll never see me cry. Here I stand and here I stay. Let the storm rage on. My power flurries through the air into the ground. My soul is spiraling in frozen frailties all around. I'm sorry, frozen fractals, whatever that is. All around. And one thought crystallizes like an icy blast. I'm never going back. The past is in the past.
Did you hear that? One thought crystallizes. Yeah, read that again.
And one thought crystallizes like an icy blast. I'm never going back. The past is in the past.
I want to focus on this as well. Again, and the fears that once controlled me can't get me at all. It says it's time to see what I can do to test the limits and to break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. Y'all get that? Yeah. All right? Now, let it go, let it go. I'm one with the wind and sky. Let it go, let it go. You'll never see me cry. Whoa, did y'all? Uh-oh.
Wow.
All right. Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
Does it sound like a person that isolates themselves and listen, you ain't gonna hurt me no more. Here I stand, here I stay, let the storm rage on. Wow. Listen, my power flurries through the air into the ground. My soul is spiraling in a frozen fractals all around. And one thought crystallizes like an icy blast. I'm never going back to the past. Does that sound like a fantasy? One thought crystallizes. You see that? And so this is that. Now we singing these songs, but you ain't even paying attention to the words. Like you see, you know why? Because the music was catchy.
Exactly. Yeah.
The music was real catchy. You just. You see that? You're not even paying attention to the words.
Right.
These are what they feeding our children, right? And so let's take the history of how do we learn, right? We first started teaching our children. We teach them stories, right? Stories. You read them Cinderella. You read them these stories, and so we have to understand that and don't. This is where we will go wrong at, because don't think that God don't want you to use your imagination. It's totally different.
Right.
All right.
Right.
And I'm gonna show you that.
That's right.
And so what that's telling people is, whatever you are, if you're homosexual, just be you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no rules for me.
That's exactly what that's saying.
That's what it's saying.
That's exactly right.
Say, right. If you want 3 partners, just do you.
Yeah.
That's what it's say. Hey, if don't nobody like it, just isolate yourself. It's okay to be cold. It's okay to be cold-hearted. It's okay to not care about nobody else, what they think. Right?
Come on.
Are you here? This is the Disney movie. Are you here? Yeah, brother. Okay. And so it's telling people it's okay to be dreary inside. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to,
Wow.
this is okay. Let it go. Just let it go. Be you. You've been holding this homosexual badness, this sexual feeling inside of you for so long. Let's let it go. Right? This is what it's saying. And so this is how the spirit of fantasy infiltrates the church. This is one of the ways. There's just many ways. TV is another one. Video games. All those demonic video games that you see, Dungeons and Dragons, all that stuff like that. It places what you know is the spirit of fantasy inside of people, and it makes you fantasize. And so this is how the devil invades the minds and the souls of God's people, right here. Now, he's starting, of course, young with the young ones because this is a Disney movie that they're usually your father and mother's going to take you to see, and you didn't see nothing. No, it just skipped right over you, right? So you see how careful we have to be as a church. That's what you call the devil's doctrine right there. Right. See, we think that we always look for something to read for the devil's doctrine. That's devil's doctrine. That's the devil's doctrine right there, and it gave it to you in a song when you started singing it. Mm-hmm. You see it? And so, so that's one of the ways how the spirit of fantasy gets in. And I'm not going to go too far into that because there's so much. This is why Paul tells the church that our foundation is the truth, right?
Yes.
And people that deal with fantasy, the only thing that's going to get them out is Jesus and the truth. That's it.
That's right. That's right.
There's nothing else. As a matter of fact, I've talked to several people, and you know what? What they said, when I mentioned it to them, they just looked at me and said, you know, I never say this to anybody because no one is going to believe me. No one will believe me. And the second thing that happened after that is, I really don't want to let it go. You know why? Because in this world, everybody accepts me. Out here, they don't. You see that? Listen, I'm telling you, people have built fantasies. Listen, some of them got husbands, wives in the world, successful jobs. I'm telling y'all, listen, I know it sounds crazy. Y'all better pay attention. Sound crazy. I know some of y'all in there thinking about it right now. Some of y'all start fantasizing while you're at church. Why the message going on? You're in a whole nother world. All right?
My Lord.
And so using fantasy is a way how the enemy sets its agenda in your life. Fantasy. And again, what is fantasy? Fantasy is trading your now. You're saying, God, this is not good enough now for a possible later I'll be successful. But have you noticed, did Eve's fantasy ever come to pass?
No.
It never did it?
No.
Huh? And so Adam and Eve went from a promised land, a Garden of Eve, to a wasteland with a fantasy. You see that? And that's exactly what happens to us. We go to a wasteland when we fantasize. Because the fantasy never comes to pass. It gives you a little 5-minute fulfillment that day. If it's sexual. Are you hearing me? Uh-oh, it's quiet in here. Thank you. Somebody agreeing with me over here. And I know, listen, you're going to have some parents say, let's not take it serious. Can we let your child explore their imagination? And can we let them... I'm not talking about that, all right? It's okay to let your child use his imagination. That's totally different. This is a reminder that we're in a battle for spiritual warfare. This is what this is. This is what you guys need to pay attention to, because when God gives us a key how to unlock a door, we better pay attention to it. Yeah. Use that key.
That's true.
Are you hearing me? And so let's look at this. The Bible tells us what? We wrestle not against what? Flesh and blood? But against principalities in high places. And these principalities are not dumb. Do you think they're going to come to you and say, hey, sing this song right here to serve me? They're not going to say, listen, they're going to give you a catchy tune. You're going to just be, you don't even know why you're dancing. You ever heard some music come on, you just dancing?
Yeah.
You don't know until you hear the words later on, like, man, they was talking about sexing anybody up. And you didn't even hear the words. You just dancing to it. All right? And so let's look at the agenda of the spirit of fantasy. You guys ready? Is this good for y'all? All right. The spirit of fantasy seeks to destroy all truth within the individual. This is what it does. Especially your purpose, the truth of your purpose. This is what it does. Especially the truth of Jesus Christ, the gospel of Jesus Christ. It tries to destroy it within us. It leaves people confused, lost, never having hope of a real... You ever had something... Listen, everything seems like it goes bad, but you never have hope of a real successful life here. The only thing you can do is fantasize about. Do you think God wants you fantasizing about being successful or being successful?
Wow.
Do you think God wants you fantasizing about having a child or having a child?
Having a child.
Do you think he wants you fantasizing about having a business or having a business? And so why do we trade in a fantasy for God's real truth?
Amen.
See, we don't see that we're doing that. We're trading in
Right.
what God said is real. To deny yourself and say, I'm not this, is saying, God, I'm not, the world you put me in is not good enough, God. I'll create my own. Are you here? You seeing this?
Yeah.
I'll create my own. I can't trust you to really bring this to pass in my life, so I'll fantasize about it. And so, let me put it this way. When you fantasize, it only gives you a hope of being free. But in the reality, you're always bound. Are you here? Are you seeing it? It's a counterfeit. It gives you a hope of having a good relationship, right? How many women fantasize about your dream man? Women, men too? You fantasize about your dream? Nobody in here? Okay. All right. I don't know how y'all got married then. Look at your neighbor and say, God wants you to have a real thing. Okay, so fantasizing is creating your own world with your own rules because God's worlds and rules aren't working for you. The spirit of fantasy always wants you to fantasize about success, right? In the world that you create because you failed to be successful in the world that God created, right? You see that? And so the enemy always wants you to give up on the natural life, but you can be successful. And I'm gonna show you how this operates. It's really so deep. And there's a great, if you look in the Bible, I was searching for stories in the Bible, but if you look in the Bible, there's a great story about spiritual warfare, about truth and fantasy. And I'm gonna share it with you guys. This is in First Samuel. You guys don't have to turn to it. I'm just gonna read it real fast to spare some time. Look at this. This is a great spiritual war. This is a great example of spiritual warfare between truth and fantasy. It says 1 Samuel 5:1. Then the Philistines took the ark of God. And let me give y'all some history first before I say this. This is when Israel didn't do what God says and they lost the war. And y'all know the covenant of God was captured, right? Mm-hmm. And so after it was captured, they lost the war because they didn't obey God. So it was custom that they would take their God and they would put their God underneath the God of the person who won to show that their God was powerful, more powerful than the God. That's why they won. So they believed that their God gave them success, and this God was they gave the God respect by putting it next to it, but they said, our God is greater than your God. Are you hearing me? Yeah. And so let me finish reading. It says, 1 Samuel 5:1, the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. It says, when the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon. Now, this is their God. And set it by Dagon. It says, and when the people of Ashdod arose early in the morning, there was Dagon falling on its face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. You see that? See that? And so now a second time they go in the room. It says, so they set it back up. Like, this must have been an accident. It fell down. Second time they did. So they took Dagon and set it in its place again. And when they arose the next morning, there was Dagon falling on its face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. This time the head of Dagon and both palms of his hands were broken off on the threshold, and only Dagon's torso was left of it. You see that? You see that? That's a great story right there that shows you the difference between fantasy and truth. Because truth always wins out, right? So God let them know this wasn't no success because of you. Right. And everybody know the power of God was in it. It wasn't because of your God that saved you. Right. And so, let me give you some history on Dagon, the god of, it was the god of the Philistines, and it was a Syrian goddess. It was actually a female god. The head and chest and the arms and the hands was that of a woman, and the torso was a fish. Does that sound familiar? What does it sound like to y'all? Mermaid. That's exactly where that came from, mermaid. That's what they would serve. And so, y'all can imagine the stories of the sailors that had these dreams, these fantasies that a woman would come out the water and they're alone. And they would meet them, they would have part fish, and they would be paired, and they would turn to a full woman and have intercourse with them. And y'all know the story, right? Yeah. And so that's where that came from, you see? We're like, oh, the mermaid. Disney's the mermaid, right? This is, y'all see how they put these idols in front of our children's face, but we just imagine that it's just a cute mermaid. Who made this up? You see it right there in the Bible, right? And so let's look at this. And so just look at I told y'all about the ceremony of defiance that they put the God of our God. They put his representation underneath their God. And so when they came in, spiritual warfare takes place at night. The head, which represents the wisdom of their God, was cut off, and the hands actually represent the work of their God. That's why God cut off the hands, the work, and that's what God tells. Listen, that's what God spoke to me. He said, "I'm getting ready to cut off the head and the hands of the enemy. I'm gonna cut off I'm gonna cut off the head, which represents the work, their actually mind, the mental, and I'm gonna cut off the hands, what makes the works in your life. All right." Y'all okay. Y'all ain't happy about that. Y'all ain't happy about that. And so y'all see spiritual world, and so this is a spiritual key that God gave us to set people free, because we've been going through some deliverance, and we've been going through with a lot of different people, and I'm realizing really a lot of people can't see themselves coming out of this world.
My God.
They can't see themselves. Really. You know what God showed me? Really, the enemy injures people so bad as a child that some of us have been in the fantasy world more than we have the natural world. We've operated in the fantasy world more than we have the natural world. And what I mean by that, if you got injured at 5 years old and you started fantasizing, you learned to live in that world more than you have here. Are you hearing me? Y'all hear me? Yeah. Okay. And so this is where God showed me, this is why a lot of people don't know how to operate in this world of success. They really don't. They don't know how to deal with people. We'll get into it. Let me show y'all this. I'm going to show y'all what it does to us. And so look at your name and say, truth will always reign over fantasies.
Truth will always reign over fantasies.
Look at him and say, LaKay, Marcus, you'll never be the apostle. That's a fantasy.
Oh.
I gotta get y'all laughing some kind of way. And so, if you again, the Apostle Paul reminds the church that we're the pillar of what? Truth. That's why he always reminds us. Listen, we're the pillar of truth. This is where if it's gonna break off on us, it's gonna break off here. All right. And so, if we don't get a hold of this, we're gonna have a whole young generation that's lost. I mean, just really lost, and it's so much easier to do because of the phones now, because of the internet, it's so much easier to get lost in the fantasy world. You ever seen anybody like just listen? They reasoning, everything they do socially is off. Like they don't know how to socially even mingle with people. They step on people's toes all the time. They don't even realize like, why do people don't like me? It's because you're trying to take your fantasy principles and operate in the natural world. You see that? It don't work. And so people reject them because like, this is just, what's wrong with you? They don't know it though. That they live in the fantasy world. Some of them do. Some of them do know they live in the fantasy world, but they're not going to say it because you're going to think you're going to judge them. Right? Yeah. Y'all better catch it. Listen, some of y'all looking at me cross-eyed. I see the ugly looks y'all really put on my face now. I can't cover it up now. It was dark before. And so the truth is, we can't afford to be silent as a church with the spirit of fantasy. Listen, because it's people being lost to the spirit of fantasy. I mean, when I tell you it infiltrates the church so bad, I mean, we're gonna lose an entire generation if we don't break this down. And so, God showed me the spirit of fantasy has to deal with black magic, right? And so, black magic is God specifically speaks of, right? Don't deal with any magic. Don't deal with any, or you're gonna be cursed and all that stuff. And so it has to do with your fantasies. Like when you see like Disney, you see they have the little wand and ding. This is magic. You see that? It's a magic. It's really, we see it as an innocent thing when you see a wand just go like this, right? Oh, this is a princess. It's black. That's magic, right? Did God say anything about good magic? No. Did y'all see anything? Oh, that's good magic. Right there. It's magic. And so I'm gonna show you just quickly how. I mean, especially when I tell you this, December is the heaviest fantasizing month you can ever. I mean, that's the biggest lot. Did y'all know Jesus' birthday is not on December 20th? Yeah. It was yesterday. Actually, October 17th. His birthday. October 17th. It's Jesus' birthday. Right? I said happy birthday to him yesterday. Did y'all say happy birthday? I was the only one in the church, y'all see? 4 BCE. Y'all say happy birthday, Jesus. Happy belated birthday.
Happy birthday, Jesus.
And so, you know what I found out about Christmas? You know what they did? They did a survey on Christmas. They said most people, Americans love the holiday, but that most of them will admit that they do, during the holiday, they do what they hate the most. During this holiday. They actually say they hate the most. They do what they hate the most during the holiday. But they say they love the holiday. How's that? Does that sound like a fantasy to you?
Yeah.
That you said you hate doing this, but you love it. But when somebody asks you about it, oh, I love the holidays. Right? Don't that sound kind of backwards? All right. Can I ask y'all a question?
Yeah.
Huh? What does flying reindeers, Santa Claus, talking to elves have to do with Jesus?
Nothing.
What that got to do with sharing his birthday? You say how we accepted that as a church? We just accepted Christmas as it was really a pagan holiday. Somebody created that.
Yeah.
They created it. Right? What did God say about pagan holidays? Now, some of them finna leave the church, man. Y'all take my Christmas away, y'all. Get up and give me the finger. Isn't it amazing how people fantasize about they giving their children gifts during the Christmas and how they gonna accept it and how happy they gonna be? Do you know most people are unhappy after Christmas? Because they spent too much money. So isn't that a fantasy? That you gonna make the family happy, but you unhappy? And you still paying back last year's Christmas this year, and you finna go do it again. You see that? What a fantasy we living in. I mean, we just, listen, y'all better catch this. Y'all better catch this. Listen, say thank you, Apostle, for catching me before December.
Thank you, Apostle.
I was finna make a fool of myself again. Child, take the toy, snatch it from you, and just broke him in 2 minutes, sitting on the floor. All because somebody told you this was Christmas.
Right.
No one ever mentions Jesus on Christmas, do they? And so let me ask you a question. Do you give a birthday gift to somebody else on your... Now, let me ask you for a birthday gift on your birthday. How would you look at it? But you following Jesus.
Right.
You see that? Y'all better pay attention to this. So y'all see how snowmen flying, this magical element to the Christmas came in, and now we accepted it. All right. And so now we're going to talk about escapism versus relaxation. All right. So I want to address y'all the elephants in the room. What about relaxing? Now, yesterday what we did this weekend, that's called relaxing, right? Now, if I was to say, my flesh said, I want to stay, I want to come back, I'm enjoying myself. Now, what if I wanted to stay there and the men said, hey, we ain't coming back, y'all, we called y'all. Said, we're going to live in this house for the rest of our lives, I want to stay in this moment. What do we say to that? They're going to have Mama Chantel coming down with a shotgun, like, you better get your butt out this house. And what if we did that? Hey, man, we ain't got to pay no bills here, man, or nothing, man, we just stay here. What if we did that? Ain't got to worry about the wives yelling at us. Stay. Wouldn't we be living in a fantasy? Versus relaxation? Now, we use the days to relax and we enjoyed ourselves, right? Now it's time to come back to reality, right?
Right.
Right? We got to go take the trash out when we get home.
Right.
We can't run from it. And so, let me put it this way. So, let me put it this way. Escapism versus relaxation. Escapism is used for the purpose of removing our thoughts or our mind from the real world. You see that? And so it's rooted in the desire to live in a fantasy rather than reality. Some of y'all, listen. Escapism is used for the purpose of removing our thoughts or our minds from the real world. It's rooted in the desires to live in a fantasy rather than reality. You know, some people would rather live in a fantasy than a reality.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I'm not going to say some people. It's not just one person. There's a whole lot of people in here that deal with this. You hear me? And that don't mean because you're older, you don't deal with it. I'm going to show you.
Right.
Some people more than others. Some people have created universes in their fantasies. You hear me? And so avoidance is the motive behind escapism, right? That's what it is, avoidance. It's an intentional attempt to forget and avoid the truth and the difficult reality rather than making an effort to make a change. You see that? And so, how does that look? People always reject me, so I go hide in the corner. I just be by myself. Well, you're not just by yourself. You got some friends.
Right.
Well, you entertaining yourself some kind of way, right? When I kid you not, when I'm telling you, some people, listen, some people have created, they have husbands in these fantasy worlds. They have everything, and so you be okay with not having to deal with nobody personally, right? Because I got everything I need in this fantasy world, right? So some of us, and I went to listen. I talked to a guy. I'm not gonna mention no names again. I talked to a guy when I talked to him in fantasy. He really didn't realize it until he thought about it. When God told him, he said, "Man, I've been trying to stop myself from going into this fantasy world all week, and I see it now. I'm like, I didn't really realize it before. I was just going to a fantasy, just all of a sudden I'm just drifting, right? Y'all better pay attention to it. You see, you catch yourself. If this is not making sense to you, you ask God to show you. Okay, let's look at escapism versus imagination. Everybody knows imagination is a gift from God, right? Imagination accesses our creativity in order to give us ideals for a better reality.
Right.
You see that?
Right.
That's the difference between imagination.
That's good.
It gives us ideals for a better reality. Now, imagine me thinking about popcorn world, thinking about how we're going to do this. But then I just want to stay in the thought process. I don't ever want to go
Right. Right.
to find out what it takes to get the licenses open.
Right.
To find, I just stay right here. Man, it's easier, man. I don't have to pay employees up in here.
That's good, Apostle.
I can just see it being successful. As a matter of fact, me and Prophet Dion, when we did the build out of our first store, Popcorn Haven, we it probably took us a couple of months, right? We had gotten so into the idea of opening the business and doing the build out that when it came to open the store, we didn't want to open the store. Remember that? I was like, man, I wish we could just stay building out, man. So now I got to face reality that customers may not come in.
Right.
Can't we just stay building here, God? Can we just stay in this
That's good.
corner? That's what I wanted to do. It's like now I gotta see if our product really somebody gonna like it.
Right. Right.
Are you seeing that?
Right.
And so let me tell you what happens with the enemy takes your imagination. Listen, unchecked imagination will become a fantasy real fast. Now, you hear me? If you stay there too long, imagining this, imagining a good husband, imagining this, and you never do any effort to get it there. Now, you hear me? Right. See, fantasy doesn't apply to the natural world. But you know people try to apply rules to fantasy here. All the time they do it. And then they wonder why they're not successful. Okay, so let's look at it. And so we all know, anybody have some reality that's stressful in their lives, right? Yes? No? Reality can be stressful at times. It really can. And I want you to understand that God wants you to rest. This is not, right? This is God wants you to rest. But for you to trade in, when you fantasize and you go into a whole nother realm, you're actually trading in this life for another life, right? It's actually a whole nother world. It's really another world that you created with your mind. But the people that's in that world are demons. They may look like people in the natural. They may look like they talk to you, everything else. I've talking to some individuals that actually have told me it's going to be hard to come out of this fantasy world because really a lot of people in here, I feel like my voice is not heard here. I feel like I'm little here. I feel like nobody sees me here. But there, I can control everything, right? I can control everything in this world. Like everybody likes me in this world, right? And so he encourages us to rest, right? Come to me, all who are labor. Y'all know the scripture, right? I'll give you rest. Let's look at. I want to ask you this question. Ask yourself: is the spirit of fantasy? Ask yourself this question: is the spirit of fantasy distorting your reality? What do you think? Is this making sense to you guys? And so, ask yourself the question: did you escape a horrific thing that happened to you when you was a child? By going through going to a whole nother world of fantasy? Ask yourself that. Did you? Me, myself, I remember the enemy placing this on me when I was younger, because I would fail at everything, and so I would really fantasize about being a good man. I would fantasize about having money. I would actually, he used a TV, NBA players. I would actually fantasize about being these players. Like, man, and you know how I would blame my mom, man. if you would have just watched our diet, we would have been in shape. We would have been able to play basketball just like.
Wow. Wow.
You know, I blame my mom because I didn't make it to the NBA. Because my mom's like, when we went to go play sports, the coach is like, oh, they're tall. We can put, y'all not jumping on my babies. My mom tried to protect us. Y'all never hurt my babies. We at home just eating sandwiches and Twinkies. And everybody, little children small, we real big. We played basketball one time. You know, we told the coach, is it lunchtime yet? Like, we just got here 10 minutes ago. We ran a couple times down the court. We hungry. We had no athleticism, no athleticism or nothing. I mean, we just was, I'm telling y'all, when we was children, we had these big old round faces, no mustache. We was just, listen, mom just let us eat anything we wanted to eat. I told y'all, my mom, when we, like average children got a box of Twinkies, y'all shared it with your family. We got our own individual box of Twinkies. And what is a child gonna do with a box of Twinkies in one day? Exactly. You looked into my bed, it was Twinkie wrappers, ding dongs, all types of stuff underneath there. Eat the whole thing. And so I would fantasize about being successful. You know, I would look up NBA players' wives and then, man, she's fine. She be just like that. I want to be just like that. And you know what? I would envision their life. I bet you when they get home, she'd hug them. Miss you, baby. I'm envisioning all this stuff in somebody else's life. You see this? And you know what? It got so bad that when the NBA playoffs went off, I was depressed. You know that? I was literally depressed because I had nothing else to do with my life. I'm like, man, I can't. Now I can't fantasize about being an NBA player because I can't watch them play now. Literally. Hey, listen, when the game went to overtime, what was it, like a 7-game series, man? I was so happy. Well, man. You see how the enemy can get you twisted with these fantasies? And y'all better, okay. Act like y'all ain't want to be Michael Jackson before. Y'all see? But you see how it's not just a sexual fantasy, but it's really a fantasy because I'm not successful here on earth. Let me go somewhere else and fantasize. And I would use the fantasy world a reason why I wasn't successful. Are you hearing me? Because I can think of myself being here. I can put it all together in my mind here. But now I got to come back to the natural and find out why I'm not successful. It was you, mama. It's you. You see that? Y'all better catch this. And so more people are confused. Listen, there's nothing wrong with having, you know what most people say? That people are fantasizing, that's just a healthy imagination. Right? Yep. Got a healthy imagination. Yep. Right? No, you don't have no healthy imagination. Fantasizing is staying in your imagination. I don't want to come out of here. Right. Y'all seen those movies, right? What's those movies where they open the closet up, they go in there, and they Never-Ending Land, what's Never-Ending Story? Listen, some of y'all still riding on the dog's back. Y'all dreaming. No, y'all know how many kids y'all had a dream? Man, I wish I had one of them animals.
That's just my movie.
The Never-Ending Story, boy. I watched that, boy. That was a good story right there. Because it gives you a story of being able to escape from where you are. Are you hearing me? Yeah. My life here is boring. God, Mom is just making me clean up. Here I'm somebody. Listen, I got a dog I can ride on the back home. It's a big dog. Are you see it? Keep talking, Mom. I'm gonna have my dog eat you. So you get bold when you're fantasy world. You can do all types of stuff, right? So they told me she used to fly over people. Like people would chase her. She fly over people. She had all types of power in her fantasy world. But here, somebody come at her. I don't want no trouble. Right. You ain't finna break my nail. Right. Do you see the difference? Yeah. All right, y'all better. Listen, this thing is real. Y'all better. I'm telling you, the spirit of fantasy is real. I've cast it out of people already. It's real. And so a lot of us you know what it is? It's hiding our real life in the fantasy world, right? Yes. That's what it's doing. It hides our real life. And so deception for listen, when you live in the fantasy world, it can become so exaggerated that again, this is where the danger part of it. You become so exaggerated that when God starts showing you your life and what he has for you, you can't see it. Because you used to living in the fantasy world. So it's like, God, is that really? Yeah. Do you know the Bible is a book of stories too? This is why it's so hard for most people to believe the Bible, because now I got Narnia right here that says this is a never-ending story. This is, I guess that's a never-ending story too for the Bible. Same thing to me.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
You see that? And so you have a hard time relating that God is real, and this is
My God.
the same thing. It's just a fiction story, right? Wow. Listen, if without the deliverance ministry and a focus to stay, listen, it's not gonna just come out, because when we cast this demon, this fantasy out of you, it's gonna come out of you. But listen, some of you is just an automatic thing, especially if you feel like a failure. If you feel like you're not contributing to your household, if you feel like, listen, you'll go into a fantasy world real fast. All right? Y'all better pay attention to this.
That's good.
Let me tell you a couple of, this is just case studies from some ministers that they had with people. I'm going to read you a couple of stories right here just to show you this. Listen, one woman was involved with a narcissist and said, I know the fact, listen to this. I know the fact of the relationship, but I find myself focusing on only the good times and the romanticizing a happy future. If I return to him, I will be abused and broken, but I'm trapped in a fantasy world, and I can't figure out how to escape. See that? She would keep going back to this guy, and she had a fantasy that I could always remember the good times. And listen, every time she go back, she would get whooped on. Now, one fantasy, one good year of the good, she's endured 6-7 years of beatings to try to keep that fantasy in her mind. Are you here? You see that? Look at this here. Here's another one. Oh, let me finish this one. She said she knew eventually the outcome if she goes back, but she didn't realize the spirit of fantasy was at the root of her torment. The minister had to break the soul tie with her ex-boyfriend and call out the spirit of fantasy, and she was finally broken for that. Wow. She didn't have a desire to go back to it. See what fantasy would do for you? Here's another one. Now this is listen, y'all women just drop your head when you hear this one. This reminds me of my lovely wife. The story you told me. I'll tell it later on. Here's another one though. A woman comes into her psychology complaining about her husband's height. Right? She asks her, she said, well, is he a good, listen, this is the best man that I ever had. He treats me right, he treats me so good. She said, but I don't know why, I can't stop focusing on how short he is. Oh, it's hitting you now, huh, woman? Right? I told you a story about my wife, right? And I tell y'all again for the people who haven't heard it. Yeah? So I hear on the phone with her girlfriend. Her girlfriend has the same thing. Listen, he just treats me so good, but he's short. So I hear my wife telling her, girl, listen, that's a good man. You need to keep him. You thinking about his height? And so I heard the conversation. She didn't think I heard it. So I think one day, a couple days later, I was on my knees. I said, what if I was this short? Would you have married me? Nope. I said, but you just told your girlfriend. Did you see that? That's the truth for her. That ain't the truth for me. I thought that was hilarious that she gave that advice, but it didn't apply to her. So she asked him, why did you marry him? She said, listen, he's the most thoughtful man. And so she turns around, she said, did you used to watch Julia Roberts movies when you were young? Eyes get big. Yeah, I did. I used to fantasize about the man in there, the leading role. What was his name? Some of y'all know. Richard Gere. Oh, look at him. Richard Gere. I would fantasize about Richard Gere sweeping me off my feet. And so every relationship she would get into, she would always compare her relationships to Richard Gere. And if the height wasn't right, if this wasn't right, she would get rid of him. Does that sound familiar? Oh. Listen, you know how many good men you gonna walk past? Because the height ain't right? Bree said we both can't be short. I understand that. See, but he can get on your shoulders and y'all can be tall together. Hold on, baby. Stay right there. Now who you talking to? And so she admits that all the leading men in these Julia Roberts movies were tall, handsome, And so her fantasy was that this, and she couldn't listen. She's married to a good man, but she couldn't get past the fantasy of having a tall man. She had to cast the spirit of fantasy out of her, and she was okay with her husband after that. Did you see that? Isn't that amazing? Wow. Yeah. It's crazy. Thank God I'm tall. I would have been gone. I would have been gone to y'all. I just saw. Lord, I hope I don't lose no legs or nothing. I'm gone. So she was trapped with the spirit of fantasy. You see how easy that is? Like, but she didn't know why. You see? And so, I'm sorry, ladies. I gotta get on y'all again. Let me tell y'all a story about this young. Let me tell y'all a story about this young lady for real. I had a young lady that, listen, very nice looking lady. I mean, came up, ministered to her. I'm tired of these bad relationships. I want a good man. You know, God gave her a good man. About a year later, I said, wait, what's going on? Oh, I had to get rid of him. He was too nice. I said, what? Can you run that past me one more time? He beat you? No, he was too nice. Do you know how long I scratched? Probably I don't have no hair, y'all. Are you serious? Do you see how we can ask God for something? She had asked God for this, but it wasn't part of her fantasy. You see? She would always listen, ladies. Can I give y'all a secret? Yes. There is no nice thug. Your fantasy is a thug with gold teeth, one leg pulled up. God, give me a good man. You go choose a thug, and he get the whooping on you. God, what happened? A thug don't know how to be nice. So how you gonna ask God for a nice thug? Do you see how you can live in a fantasy? Just because you like the appearance of a rough man doesn't mean he's the man for you. Uh-oh. Lord have mercy. I'm talking to somebody up in here. I'm talking to somebody up in here. Lord have mercy. I see people pick the thugs and then say, why he's not treating me right? Listen. Let a bull loose. He's not gonna give you 50% of the bull. He giving you all the bull. You think he gonna just? Yeah, I'll just go slow. Listen, he unleashing everything he got. Unleash a thug, he gonna give you all the thug. Jesus. I want somebody to look like Snoop Dogg. Lord have mercy. Listen, I also see people who's addicted to, this is another realm for men and women, the spirit of pornography. That actually takes you out to a spirit of fantasy, and now intercourse with your mate is mundane now. Some of us can't even listen. We can't even have intercourse with our mates unless we watch pornography. You see how you switch now? And now you've got a soul tie with the images of pornography in the fantasy world. And you know what I realized about fantasies? They have no mercy. They have no reason. See, you can't rent this. You reason in the fantasy world. And so your wife come home after 10 hours of work, cook food for you, take care of the baby, and you want her to be like the porn star on the tape. She done work 15 hours. You ready? You supposed to be, the woman's ready. I'm smiling. Yeah, I'm ready. I done did everything. Now, what is your sexual desire, honey? Do you see how delusional a fantasy can make you? And listen, man, if you find yourself mad because you can't get sex, you're in a fantasy world. You live in a fantasy world. You live in a fantasy world. Because there's going to be some times where your wife got a headache, she got something. Listen, she's busy. I used to be one of them. Listen, upset. Me and Jay Tom was talking about some old times, about how we used to be. I'm not gonna bust him out, Chantel, because I don't want you. Chantel, like, what do you say? You're a different man now, eh? Different man. Kevin, make sure you delete the tapes. Can't get out. But listen, do you see how fantasy can? And so I had fantasy always gives you unrealistic expectations in the natural world. It has no mercy. It just wants to be fulfilled. That's it. It's just the only thing you see is I want to be fulfilled. That's it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Fulfill my desires. Right. Oh, Lord. Y'all better come on with it.
Come on, Pastor.
And so through the spirit of fantasy, the enemy places a bond. It's an emotional bond with men and women. Where now y'all know that little feeling that comes in your brain when you start watching pornography. You just got this, and now your eyes are attracted to this, and you need this to fulfill yourself. When God says, "I already gave you the real thing, right? I gave you the real thing. Now you need this to fulfill yourself, right?" All right, y'all better come on. And so the ungodly bond has to be broken with pornography. That's another thing. So the spirit of fantasy can come out. Let me just go to the next thing, y'all, quickly. Let me give you some examples of the form of escapism. And this is, again, it's not just sex. You know, escapism could be overworking.
Yep.
Yeah? Some men that don't want to come home to their nagging wife. I stay at work and just overwork myself. Same time women. Yeah? Stay at home and overwork myself. That's escapism. I don't want to come home. I don't really want to face that our relationship is bad, so I'll just stay at work. Right? Overeating. It's a form of escapism. Addiction, smoking, drugs, alcohol, gambling, pornography, even love. People got love addiction. They need to be loved.
Wow.
They need to be accepted.
Wow.
You hear me? And so we almost at the end now. Well, I got some signs that you've created your own world. Y'all write this down. These are several signs. I got 20 down here. Listen, there's many more.
You said 20?
Yeah, this is about 20 of them I got on here, but I'm gonna read them real fast. And if y'all don't get it, then y'all have to listen to the message and write it down. All right? Number one, signs that you live in the fantasy world. It can be one, or it can be many more that apply to you, okay? On this. You have a superhero-like dreams, being strong, but in the natural life, you're weak and you feel small and overlooked. Right? Anybody? You had dreams where all of a sudden in your dreams, you're picking people up by the neck, slamming them and everything else, but literally you feel like people don't notice you in the real world. You see how that operates? You feel like you're real strong, you can muff people, you can do anything you want to. All right? Number two, you have a lot of sexual fantasy dreams, including bondage dreams. Number three, you have dreams that leave you feeling drugged. Anybody? You wake up and literally feel like you smoke drugs. You feel like your brain is just heavy. Number four, you feel awkward when you're around men and women of your equal peers. You get along better with the opposite sex. You say, for women, you say, I don't like women. I just don't like women. Men, I don't get along with them. I get along with women better than I do men. Uh-oh, y'all better come on.
Stepping on some toes.
I'm in the vein, Mark. Number five, you daydream or fantasize of a better life, but it always eludes you. In the natural.
My Lord.
You daydream of losing weight. You fantasize about being skinny, but it never always loses you. Uh-oh. You fantasize about stop eating them chicken nuggets, but you keep on. I was talking to one of the men over the trip right there. He says, "Man, when you say something about finances, man, I'm adding my finances. I spend about $500-$600 a month." I said, "Let me ask you a question. Did you stop yet?" You living in a fantasy world. You think it's gonna stop by itself? You see that? Yeah. I'm gonna shut up with myself, y'all. Y'all better come on here. I know this message is good. Casey paying attention to me. That's how I rate my messages. Casey looked at me the whole time. It was good. All right. This is me again. Number 6, y'all. You imagine the life and stories of another, and you secretly wish that you could be them. That was me. Secretly wish I could be Michael Jordan. Man, no, he gets some cold-blooded women. That was my mindset, y'all. I'll be honest with y'all. I had a fantasy, y'all. I had to find out why my fantasy didn't come to pass. It was y'all fault. All right, number 7. You ready? We're on number 7, right?
8.
Okay.
Number 7.
Hannah, you living in the fantasy world. That's number 7. All right, number 7, y'all. We on 8 or 7?
8.
No, 7.
You're the only one that's saying it.
Number 6 was imagine your life and stories. Yeah, we on 7. All right, number 7. You have a hard time operating in the real world situations. All right. Let me show you how that look again. Again, when people, you feel like everybody rejects you all the time. You feel like you can't get along with this. Something always falls apart in your life, and you don't know how to handle it. All right. Number 8.
Say something again.
You have a hard time operating in the real world situations, especially when it's anxiety or pressure put on you. Especially when it's pressure put on you. You think you can cuss your boss out and you're going to keep your job. That's what a fantasy is, right there. Uh-oh. that's when you come to reality, when you wake up the next morning and say, dang, I ain't got no job. I was living in a fantasy. Number 8, y'all. This is a big one here. You feel as you never get enough sleep no matter how many hours you sleep. Because you're living in two, you know what? You're living in 2 worlds. You actually live in this, you work in this world and you actually live in that world. You never go to sleep. Your brain is constantly going. You know why your body rests? Is when your brain shuts down. If your brain, it's not just your body shutting down not doing nothing, it's your brain, your central system resting. That's what gives rest to the rest of your body. If your mind constantly goes, you actually live in a whole other world. So you live in 2 worlds. That's why it don't matter how much rest you get, you still feel tired. Number 9. You feel like no one in this world understands you but the voice in your head. Yes, man. I know this sounds funny, but listen, I'm telling you, this stuff is legit.
It's real.
You feel as no one understands you but the voice in your head. As a matter of fact, you talk to the voice in your head more than you do people here on earth.
Preach.
You know what that looks like? You have a hard time expressing your true emotions to anybody here. But you go tell your story to the demon in your head. Man, tell you what happened, man.
Preach, apostle.
You go talk to them. You go in your world and, boy, and let it all out. Come back out like nothing went wrong, boy. Good. All right. Number 10. You get anxiety when you feel something is naturally out of your control. Uh-oh.
Wow.
I know. Listen, I'm going to put a needle on my vein myself.
Right.
That's in the vein. Number 11. Y'all ready? You fantasize. Your fantasy. No, let me get this right. You use fantasy world's reasoning to get natural world answers.
Wow.
In other words, you know what that look like? I don't understand why everybody else in here is not accepting me. It got to be everybody else.
Right.
It's got to be everybody. It's all your fault. Now, you hear me? You use fantasy world reasoning to get natural world answers. Number 12. It's hard for you to believe the promises and works of God, but it's easy for you to believe fairy tales and mythical things.
Wow.
Easy for you to believe that.
That's so good.
You know what that look like?
So good.
I could have swore that statue just moved. That just moved. You could believe that, but when God says I'm here, that's possible. Now, last time I checked, I haven't seen anything that's staggered moved to me. If I put this speaker on the wall, I ain't moved yet. But you can believe that a statue can move at the corner of your eye. I know it just moved. That's a gargoyle. You see that? You see the foolishness? When you come back next Sunday, that cross gonna be on the wall. It ain't gonna open the door for you and say, come on in. Y'all know I'm telling the truth here. Y'all better. It's hard for you to believe the promises and works of God, but it's easy for you to believe fairy tales and mythical things. Can you say that one more time for me, there, Tassie? That's good. Somebody's agreeing with this. All right, here's something that ain't here. Y'all probably gonna throw a rock at me on this one. Can you protect me, honey? You get physically mad at something that you envision someone else doing to you while in a fantasy.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Having a dream. That's the one. That's the one.
Didn't happen to you. You fantasized about it and got mad.
Oh, facts. That's the one. Yeah. Oh wow.
You better come on. Come on. Let's see what Jesus meant. He's trying to stone the brother. Now, you see that? I'm in the artery now. I didn't even think. I'm in the main artery. You see that? You get physically mad at something you envisioned somebody did to you.
My God.
You see that? It's like it happened. That's what I mean by you reason in the fantasy world like it's the natural world.
Lord have mercy.
Like it really happened.
Jesus.
You walk up to somebody, you just cursed me out. I ain't talking to you. Y'all, I'm telling you, this thing is funny, but it's real, y'all. Listen. I'm telling you. Number 15. When in the disagreement with others, you go into a fantasy world trance. Oh, it's 14? Yeah. No, that's number 14 is you get physically mad at something that you envision. Number 13, did I miss it? Yeah. Okay, I missed number 13, y'all. So y'all just write this down for 14. Number 13. Yeah, oh, this is a real good one too. Woo! Y'all want to hear?
Come on.
All right. You have unrealistic expectations of yourself and others' abilities and strengths, especially in relationships. You have unrealistic expectations of yourself and others' abilities and strengths. Right? You know what they look like? You think your husband can pick up a refrigerator by himself. I'm not going to even say no words. I'm not going to even say no words, y'all. I'm going to look over here. And you get mad at him when he can't. Woo. What's wrong with you? You can't pick up a 600-pound refrigerator? You weak. Oh, Lord Jesus. Y'all come on now. And you have unrealistic expectations of your abilities of your own abilities. You think you can do what a man can do. You think you can lift as much as a man can lift. I can do the same thing. I got it. You see that? Huh? We're not saying that women are not strong, you're not able to do nothing, but hey, you can't lift as much as I can. Yeah? Your dog on show can't beat me in basketball. All right? But look at that, though. Y'all see that? Unrealistic expectations of people to fulfill, but it's meant to fulfill your fantasy world. Now, could I pick up a refrigerator by myself? No. I cannot pick up a refrigerator by myself. I call Marcus and Lakay to help me with my refrigerator. Right? But unrealistic expectation in the fantasy world, I can pick up a refrigerator, right? Right? Y'all get that? All right. Yo. I'm talking. Listen, somebody gonna hate me after this. I'm just. Listen. I love y'all. I'm gonna tell y'all. Just me. All right. Number 15. When in a disagreement with others, you go into a fantasy world trance to find peace or to answer for the problem. Uh-oh. Let me show you what that look like. You start envisioning what the other person is thinking right now. That you ain't saying this about me. This guy is showing me that you was, I hate them. You know what your end result is? They ain't gonna never speak to me again. And so you live your life like that. The next time you see the person, they hug you.
Wow.
What? I thought you were gonna speak to me. Listen, man, you just knocked over my glass of milk. But in your mind, you have went into a fantasy world. You've already imagined what was going to happen next time you see the person, right? Anybody? Yeah. Okay. You even thinking, you even seeing what they're saying about you. That stupid bee. That's they cursing me out right now. See that? Number 16. This is really good too. You have a hangman or worst case scenario, I'm going to be punished mentality, especially when you're at fault at something. Worst case scenario, always a hangman, straight to the, oh my God, God's finna strike me down, it's over. He's gonna send Zeus with a bunch of lightning to hit me. Right? Y'all get that? Especially when you're at fault, right? Now get this, number 17, the other thing to that, number 17, when others are at fault, you have an unrealistic expectation on how they should apologize to you.
Wow.
You even envision them coming in with a red rug, rolling it down. Dun, 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 dun. I hereby apologize that I was wrong. What I did to you, please forgive me on one knee.
Oh my.
And when it don't happen, you get mad.
Right. Right.
When it don't happen the way you want it to, you get mad. When others are at fault, you have an unreal expectation on how they should apologize to you. If it doesn't line up with the way your fantasy has brought it to you, you get mad at them. As a matter of fact, you won't even accept their apology. Because it didn't happen the way you fantasized it. You get that? You won't accept the apology because it didn't happen the way you fantasized it should happen. You know what that looked like? I just didn't think they were sincere. You see that? They're gonna have to try. I'm gonna draw blood for that. You're gonna have to show me some blood first. Number 18. Things that are usually easy for most people are a mountain of stress for you. So things that are usually easy for most people in the natural world become a mountain of stress for you. Wow. Let me show you what they look like. Decisions.
That's so true.
Uh-oh.
So true. Yep.
You know what they look like? The world is going to end if I make the wrong decision. You know what I mean? Listen, some of y'all women can't even pick out an outfit in the morning time. You be 4 hours picking out an outfit. Wrong decision. Is God going to accept this outfit? I'm talking about decisions be so hard for you. Listen, you live in the fantasy world like it's that. Listen, it's not that serious. Look at your neighbor and say it's not that serious.
It's not that serious.
Make the decision.
Make the decision.
Did you know God would rather have you make the wrong decision than to make no decision? Or have somebody else make the decision for you? Right? God will cover you through the bad decision.
Right.
All right? I'm not here because I made all the good decisions. I made some bad decisions in my life. God still covered me. Right? Number 19. You run and hide from responsibility or what you consider to be the scary things of life. Having a child, marriage. Does that look? Y'all get that? It's really a little boy and girl spirit that goes and hides and runs from responsibility. All right, y'all ready? Number 20. Finally. This is pretty big too. Y'all gonna laugh on this one probably. You daydream or envision yourself as the characters in books, the Bible, and movies. You actually try to infiltrate and put yourself in that character. You see yourself with a chariot on, a belt. You get a whole vision in your mind. Uh-oh. Lex is over there laughing, so she just did that there. Y'all see that? Y'all stand to your feet. We got stand. Get some dream music, some fantasy music there, Brother Casey. We need some realistic music there, right? It's reality music.
Some reality.
Did y'all get something out of the message?
Yeah.
You see that? Now it sounds like it's really a untapped message in the body of Christ. And it sounds weird, listen, but I'm telling you, this is so real. It infiltrates the church, and it makes you not believe God is real. Or if you do believe God is real, it's a magical thing. It's this magical. Are you hearing me? I've had people tell me, what you call it? So can you give me a psychic, or can you give me a reading again? I've had people tell me this. Can you give me a reading again? Yeah. I have people trying to attach themselves to us because they want a personal prophet so they can call when something going wrong in their life. Hey, can you tell me what to do now? Mm-hmm. But you ain't been back to the church since we prophesied to you. You just want a personal prophet. Isn't that a psychic? Well, this one I don't have to pay for. can just call this one. They tell me, right? You see the stuff that you have to go through as a minister? Listen. People live in a fantasy world. They really do. I mean, they live in a fantasy world. There's people that catfish people all the time. You ever heard that?
Yeah.
You know what that's all about? Becoming somebody else because I don't like my life.
Yeah, it is.
That's what that's about. Because I can become anybody online. I can send a picture of a beautiful person. You know what? They actually feel like they're beautiful, just like that person, that picture they sent.
Yeah.
Right? That's what catfishing is all about. It's the rejection of my life here for the one I wanted to create it. Right here. Because God, you didn't make me pretty enough.
Yeah.
You didn't make me wealthy enough, God. You see that? And so that's why it's so rooted into, and fantasy is so rooted into black magic, because it's really the enemy trying to give you. And look at Adam and Eve. They never got the fantasy that they had. They turned the Garden of Eve into a wasteland with one fantasy that they believed. And some of us have been going through the same thing, fantasizing. Fantasizing about the wife we're going to have, fantasizing about the life we're going to have. Have you noticed that it eludes you? You'll be 70 years old doing the same thing because of the spirit of fantasy. Right? Can I tell you something? Listen, there's no perfect man. Right? There's no perfect woman. The best you can get, you hope for, is 3 out of 5, if you can get that. If you can get that. Rare 5 out of 5s like me is very rare. That took some time, y'all. Listen, I was probably a negative 1 out of 5 when she met me. But you know what? In my fantasy world, I was a good man. Listen, I was a terrible man. Terrible. But until God takes you out of your fantasy world and shows you reality of your breath stinking. Right? I lived in a fantasy world. I wanted a wife who was a porno star. Right? Isn't that what men do? Did you know that's a fantasy somebody created? It's a fantasy somebody created. The average woman don't just like having sex like that. That's my experience. Every single day, every single hour, the average one, no. If you do, I need some cast some demons out of you. Straight up. That's the average woman is not just, listen, they got some freaky women out there. I'm trying to keep it clean, but this every day is just, women are not like that. They don't have the drive of a man. Do you hear me?
Right.
But pornography would tell me that this does work. This operates like this. Everybody operates like this. Right? And so that's the danger of being in the fantasy world, where you stay there so long that now you are confused at the difference of what fantasy is and what reality is. What God's reality is. That's the first thing. Because when God starts telling you, hey, you're going to be my prophetess. You're going to be my... that's a fantasy, what you're saying. It's just like somebody saying, you're going to be my princess. You want to put my princess dress on? You equate it to that. Like it's just a little girl dressing you up. Well, princesses aren't real. Santa Claus is not real, right, y'all? So why is Santa Claus on Jesus' birthday? And Jesus is real. Do you see? Huh? Why would you mix something that's false with something that's true? And we just accept it. Tell our children about it. If you don't behave, Santa's not going to give you any cookies. You know what the black family said? You don't behave, you ain't getting nothing. I don't know about the Caucasian, but what y'all say? You ain't getting nothing. I don't want to spend this money anyway. You're making up excuses, trying to find stuff. You ain't cleaning your room, you ain't getting nothing for Christmas. Y'all see how that infiltrates though? Right? And it makes you so unmerciful to your mate. Because you're trying to equate and try to relate to them in a fantasy. You see how it is? No heart towards it, just give me my desires. You're supposed to fulfill me. Right? That's not what a wife is for. I was telling Josh that, listen, I couldn't enjoy my wife because of pornography. Couldn't have, every time I looked at her, the only thing I saw was sexual. What can you do for me sexually? I couldn't enjoy her smile. I couldn't enjoy her cooking. I couldn't enjoy it. Everything was just sexually based. And God had to break that off of me because of pornography. Right? A fantasy. I lived in a fantasy and tried to mix it with this life here. And got mad when my fantasy didn't come true. Isn't that something?